Alright, in this video we are going to be reviewing problems related to perimeter area and volume, TEKS 5.4H. We'll be dealing exclusively with word problems. We will work a lot with how to decode these problems to find out exactly what the question is asking us. And with perimeter and area and volume, we're also going to see a lot of diagrams, so we'll talk about what those diagrams mean and the best way to approach breaking them down so we can get our correct answers. Alright, so number one. Monique divided her rectangular vegetable garden into 3 sections, as shown in the drawing below. All right, and then we're given some information down here. So the first thing is the potato section is a square, that's important, with a side length of 7 meters. The carrot section is a square, also important, with a side length of 5 meters. What is the area in square meters of the corn section of Monique's garden? So we're trying to find the area of the corn section. Now we're not told if the corn is a rectangle or a square. We can kind of look at the diagram and make an assumption that it is a rectangle, but we're not given any direct information on that. So the first thing we need to do when we've got a diagram like this is we need to mark up the diagram. Every piece of information that we're given, we need to put on the diagram. All right, so let's start with this first bullet point. The statement up here doesn't give us a lot of direct information about the diagram itself. It just kind of explains the diagram. So potato section is a square with side length of 7 meters. So what I want to do on this is I want to label all the sides as 7 meters. Now because it's a square, I know that every single side is going to be the same length. So side length is 7 meters. The carrot section, same thing. It's 5 meters though. So I'm going to label each of the 4 sides as 5 meters. Now, what I can get from the corn section is because this is a rectangle, I know that this side length is the same as this side length. So because I know that, I've got 7 meters here and here, which means this side up here has to be 5 meters because this section down here is 5, because it tells me it's a rectangular garden. So the entire garden is a rectangle, which means the opposite sides are going to have the same length. So this side will have the same length as this side, and this side will have the same length as this side. So because of that, I can put with certainty that this length here is 5 meters. And I also have it here, but I really have to use the fact that this is a large rectangle. All right, the challenge comes with now finding this section, because if I want to find the area of the corn section, I'm going to need the length and the width. All right, so I've got the length now because I'm looking at the area of the corn section. So the length is 5 meters because that's what I just figured out. Now I need to find what is the width. What is this measurement right here? And again, I have to use the fact that this is a rectangle. So this side here is 7 meters, which means this side is also 7 meters. All right, now here's why that's helpful. Because I know that this part of the side, from here to here, I know that it's 5 meters. So if the whole side is 7 meters and this section is 5, then the leftover piece right here has to be 2 meters. Because 7 minus 5 is going to give me 2. Because these two lengths have to equal 7. Because it's a rectangle. All right, so my final side length, or my width actually, is 2 meters. So 5 times 2 gives me 10. And make sure to put my squared symbol because I'm doing meters times meters. And area is measured in square meters. And so the area of the corn section is 10 square meters. But I cannot stress enough how important it is to mark up these diagrams, to write all over them. Label the things that you know. That will help you to figure out the missing piece of information that you still need. All right, number two. Number two, Kevin packed some books in a box shaped like a rectangular prism. The volume of the box is 168 cubic inches. Which model could represent Kevin's box? So we're given 4 answer choices, and And basically the way that we need to do this is we just need to figure what the volume is for each answer choice. So for A, and I'm going to do this. What's the volume? For B, what's the volume? For C, what's the volume? And for D, what's the volume? And I just need to figure that for each one. And then when I get finished, I'll look back and see which one of them is 168. Now the reason I want to do it for all three is because if I just do it for the first few and I actually find one that equals 168, then I may have made an error. If I don't check every single answer choice, I'm not going to know that. All right, so I'm going to go back and just highlight some keywords here. All right. So for A, for volume, I'm just multiplying length times width times height. So I've got 10 inches times 16 inches times 8 inches. That's supposed to be an H. It's not a very good H, but I know that 10 times 16 is 160 times 8. I can just do that off to the side. Oop. 160 times 8. So that gives me 1,280 cubic inches. Sorry, that should be a cube, not a square. 1,280 cubic inches. All right, so A is not going to work. Let's look at B. We got 4, the length is 4 inches times 7 inches times 10 inches. Base is going to be 4 times 7, which is 28 square inches times 10. 28 times 10 is 280 cubic inches, so that's not going to work. All right, C, we've got 6 inches times 6 inches times 14 inches. So the area of the base, 6 times 6 is 36 square inches times 14. Going to need to do that off to the side. 14, placeholder, 36. Running out of paper here. So that's going to be 504 cubic inches. So that's not going to work. All right, so I'm down to D. Hopefully D will have my correct answer. Otherwise, I've made an error somewhere. Didn't do good when I did this little calculation here. Kind of got in my way. I have to shift over a little bit. All right, so the area of the base is going to be 3 times 7, which is 21 square inches times 8. Do that off to the side. And so we get 168 cubic inches, which is what I need. So my answer is D. But again, even though it's a little bit of computation and it takes some writing, we need to figure out the volume for each answer choice. Because had I made an error here, or if it had been one of the previous answer choices and I'd made an error there, I wouldn't have caught it. So doing all the answer choices, that will at least give me a better chance of choosing the correct answer. Because if I make an error, I wouldn't have gotten the correct answer, and I could have gone back and looked a little closer and found my mistake. Okay. All right, on to number 2. I'm sorry, number 3. All right, number 3. A square has a perimeter of 20 centimeters and an area of 25 centimeters. What is the length of one of the sides? Now, this is an interesting problem because it really requires us to understand the formulas for perimeter and area. Now the good news is that on STAAR you're going to be given your STAAR reference sheet, which has those formulas. So for perimeter, we're going to get perimeter equals 4 times the side, or perimeter equals side plus side plus side plus side. We're going to get area for a, and again, this is all for a square, and that's important because depending on the shape, we're going to have different formulas. For the area of the square, we're going to have side times the side. So if we're given this scenario where we're given both the perimeter and the area, the easiest way to figure this out, because we haven't done square roots yet, if you know your square roots, then you could probably figure this out just looking at the area. And some of you are gonna look at this and start thinking through numbers, and that's just kind of a trial and error thing, which that can work. The problem is if you're given a number where it's a decimal, then you're going to have to know how to actually calculate it. So the easiest way to do that is for us to use the perimeter and get an answer and then check that answer to make sure it matches for the area. All right, so the best way to do that is we're given that the perimeter is 20. So I'm going to say 20 equals 4 times the side length. All right, now I need to find a number that I can multiply by 4 to get 20. Now most of us can think what that number is pretty easily, but if you had something strange like, I don't know, 38.8 or something like that, then you would need to go ahead and do this next step. So now this is getting into a little bit of algebra, and I don't want to confuse you too much if you haven't done this yet. But the way that we do this is we will divide both sides by 4. Okay? Now I'm going to write it this way because that's how you're going to see it. That's how you're going to see it in the future in algebra. But if it helps you, then you can think of it in this way, that we just need to divide 20 by 4 to figure out what to multiply by 4, and just do it from that point. Now, of course, 5 is going to be our answer. But this is the way you'll do it in algebra. And so what's happening here is 4 over 4 becomes 1 whole. All right? And so 1 whole times s is just going to be s, and so this stays 20 over 4. And so what we get is s equals 20 over 4. Now, as we've talked about a lot, fractions are just division problems in disguise. And so what we end up with is what we've done over here already. All right, so 20 divided by 4, which is 5. So the length of one side ends up being 5. And actually, it's 5 centimeters. Now, the way I can check that is by using my area formula, because the area is supposed to be the side length times the side length. And so I would get 25 square centimeters, which is what the problem tells me my area is. So this just kind of becomes my check. Now again, if this was a little bit confusing for you, don't worry too much about that right now. You will have to know how to do that eventually. But if you just can kind of wrap your brain around this, that the perimeter was 20, so we need something we can multiply by 4 to get 20, and the way we find that is just dividing 20 by 4 to find that number that we can then multiply to get 20. All right. On to number 4. Now, this is a good example of a pretty simple concept, but the way the question is written can get us a little confused. All right, so rectangular prism is made of 1 centimeter cubes, shown below. Write and solve an equation to find the area of the base. So we're going to write and solve an equation to find the area of the base, so you could find volume too. Now here's where it gets tricky. So you could find volume 2. We're not actually going to find the volume, so I'm going to put a line through that because I don't need to find the volume here. It's just telling me to write and solve an equation to find the area of the base. So at some point I could use that to find the volume, but it's not asking me to find the volume. Now, if this were a multiple choice, well, we'll talk about that in a second. We'll talk about what kind of a trick answer choice you could see here. First thing let's do is just find the area of the base. Remember, the base is the bottom of the shape, the bottom face of the shape. With a rectangular prism, the top is going to be, this top facing is going to be the exact same. But I'm going to use the bottom because that's what we need to kind of keep in mind. All right, so my length, because area is going to be length times width, my length is going to be 5, and my width is going to be 3. So my length is 5, my width is 3, so my equation is going to be area equals 5, and it's centimeters, times 3 centimeters. So my area is 15 square centimeters. Now, the original problem for this had four multiple choice answers where you were choosing an equation. And so, and I don't remember the exact which one was which, but I do remember what the answer choices were. A was, we'll just use the answer as A. So A was 5 times 3. B was 5 times 2. C was 3 times 2. And D was 5 times 3 times 2. Now, the trick answer on this one really was answer choice D. Because if you understand what the base is, that the base is the bottom of the shape, then you know you need the 5, and you know you need the 3. And so 5 times 2, that gives us this face right here, and 3 times 2 gives us this side face right here. But this one is the one that really trips people up, because this is actually the formula for the volume. But remember, we don't need the volume. We're trying to find the area of the base. So when you're given a problem like this where you've got multiple choice answers, it is always a good idea to write out what the area of the base would be and then compare how you got there to your answer choices, as opposed to just looking at this and circling one. All right, number 5. Dalen is painting her bedroom walls. The height of the wall is 8.5 feet. The width of the wall is 17 feet. What is the area of the one wall she will paint? Now, here's what's interesting about this problem. And this problem could trip you up if you're not careful. Area, our formula for area is length times width. Well, in this problem, we don't have length. We're just given width and we're given height. But here's what you need to keep in mind. If we're talking about a room, and I'm going to draw the room as a rectangular prism, because most rooms are set up that way, not all, but most, then the floor, that would be our base. And so typically, the length and the width are here on these bottom two measurements, and then the height is here. Well, this wall that she's painting is probably this wall right here, this side facing. So the two measurements that we're going to get is we're going to get the width here, and we're going to get the height here. So when we're trying to find the area, basically what we have to do is where it tells us the height is 8.5, we're going to substitute that measurement in for our length in our formula. And so what we end up with is that the area is 8.5 feet, which is our height, times 17 feet, which is our width. And then it's just a matter of us calculating that. It's been a long day, so I'm going to check my computations on the side here. All right, we're good. And so that's what we get is 144.5 square feet. All right, on to number 6. Now, number 6 should look remarkably like the one we did earlier, which is number 2. The only difference between number 2 and number 6 is this time we're looking for one that has 504 cubic inches as opposed to 168. So I actually copied the graphics from earlier, and so if you have done those computations, you can actually look back at number 2, and it will have the exact same volumes. So I will tell you, if you're just dying to know, that answer choice C, which is 6 times 6 times 14, is our answer for this one. That's a way for me to check and see if you actually did the computation back on number 2, because those that did it will be able to do this problem in just a few seconds, and those that didn't will have to go through and do it over again. All right. On to number 7. Now number 7 is another one we have to read carefully because we're given some information that we don't necessarily need. All right, the base of an aquarium has a length of 36 inches and a width of 22 inches. The height of the aquarium is 18 inches. What is the area of the base of the aquarium in square inches? So if we're finding the area of the base, we need the length and the width. We're given the height. Now I'm going to go ahead and mark the height out just to remind me, hey, I don't need this. And I'm even going to do it up here in the problem. I don't need it. All I need is the length and the width. All right, so my area is going to be 36 inches times 22 inches. And so my area is going to be 792 square inches. All right. Now these last 4 problems we are going to have to read very, very carefully. And I put them in here intentionally, and I put some repetition in here because, excuse me, because there is an element in here that I want us to really focus in on and pay attention to. All right. Well, we'll just do it, and I'll show it to you while it's in here. Kat is covering rectangular cooking pans with foil as she takes them out of the oven. If the length of each pan is 45 centimeters and the width of each pan is 5.75 centimeters, how many square centimeters of foil will Kat use if she covers 4 pans with foil? Now here's the part I want you to really focus in on, is this right here. If we're not careful, we will see rectangle, we'll see length, we'll see width, we'll see 2 numbers, we'll see square centimeters, and we will just go right ahead and multiply our length and our width. Didn't give myself enough room there. And we'll say 258.75 square centimeters. And we'll circle that answer and move on, and that will be wrong. That will be incorrect because what we didn't see, because we were going too quickly, what we missed is this little word for right here. And the test writers will do this intentionally to make sure that you're paying attention. They're not going to give you a number for, they're going to give you the word for. And so if you're not careful, you will miss right over the fact that we need 4 of these pans covered. And this is the area of one of the pans. We need 4 of them. So that number gives us this area, but I need all 4. And so what we then have to do for our second step is we have to take this and we have to multiply it by 4. Now before I go on, I'm going to make sure that that computation is correct. Yep, I'm good. All right, 0 to 2, 28, 30, 4, 35. So I'm trying to go through this relatively quickly because I don't want this to be too long. I'm going to take off those last two zeros because I don't need them after the decimal. I don't need those. And so my answer is 1,025 square centimeters. Sorry, that's wrong. C30, 23, it should be 23. Look at that, Mr. Beckwith. Going too fast. See, I just commented that I was trying to go fast, and I made a mistake. Not following my own advice. It's when your parents say, do what I tell you to do, not what I do. Or do as I say, not as I do. Alright, so we get 1,035 centimeters, square centimeters. Alright, next three problems are very similar to that. They're kind of a similar format. And it's just to give us repetition to make sure we're looking for, make sure we're looking through and reading the problem very carefully. Sarah is covering 3, look at that as a word, not as a number, 3 bulletin boards with butcher paper. The length of each bulletin board is 0.75 meters and the height is 1.75 meters. What is the total amount of butcher paper that Sarah will use? All right, so again, we've got a couple of elements here going on because we've got height and we've got length, but we don't have width. And remember, because we're dealing with something that's going to sit on the wall, we would actually think of how high it is, and so that's why this word height is used. So, but it's still length and width. We've just subbed the word height in for one of the measurements. All right, so the area of one of the bulletin boards is going to be 0.75 times 1.75 meters. All right, so let's do that off to the side here. 5 times 5 is 25. You see me slowing down. 5 times 5 is 25. Carry the 2. 5 times 7 is 35. Plus 2 is 37. Carry the 3. 5 times 1 is 5. Plus 3 is 8. Placeholder. 7 times 5 is 35. Carry the 3. 7 times 7 is 49. Plus 2 is 52. 7 times 1 is 7. Plus 2, plus 5 is 2. 5 plus 0 is 5, 7 plus 5 is 12, carry the 1, 8 plus 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11, carry the 1, 1 and 2 is 3, and so we get 131.25, but that's just for one board. Alright, I'm checking my computation here on to the side. Whoa. Mr. Beckwith, slow down, you're putting your decimal in the wrong place. Hopefully somebody caught that. Because I've got 2 numbers to the right here, 2 numbers to the right here, so my final answer needs to have 4 numbers to the right of the decimal. Hate to miss that question just because my decimal's in the wrong spot. All right, so this just gives me the area of one board. So now, since I have 3 boards, I need to multiply this by 3. All right, so 3 times 5, 15, carry my 1, 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7, 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 1 is 3, 4 numbers to the right of the decimal, and so there's my answer. I'm going to go ahead and write that in square meters before I circle it. All right, number 10, pretty much the same question from earlier, just with slightly different numbers. Cat's cooking again, which if you know Cat, is quite dangerous for Cat to be cooking. Cat is covering rectangular cooking pans with foil as she takes them out of the oven. If the length of each pan is 35 centimeters and the width of each pan is 9.75 centimeters, how many square centimeters of foil will Cat use if she covers 2 pans? So now we're looking at 2 pans. I think last time it was 3. No, it was 4 last time. That's right. All right, so again, area for each pan is going to be 9.75 centimeters times 35 centimeters. All right, let's see if I get in trouble again because I'm not verbalizing my computation. Let's see if I make another mistake. All right, let's see how I did. Hey, look at that. I did all right. All right, now I've got to multiply this by 2 because I've got 2 pans. All right, this is just the area for one pan. So I need to find the area for 2 pans. So I'm just going to multiply by 2. So I've got 682.5 square centimeters. And that's my answer. All right, last problem. And Sarah is covering bulletin boards again. So again, just some repetition, just some practice. Basically the same problem as number 9. The only difference is we've changed some of the numbers up. So this time Sarah is covering 5 bulletin boards with butcher paper. The length of each bulletin board is 0.68 meters and the height is 1.37 meters. What is the total amount of butcher paper that she's going to use? And so we're going to set it up the exact same way we did before. Area is length times width, even though it doesn't say length and width, it says length and height. We'll sub the height in here for width. Again, because just like with the walls on the previous question, we're thinking about something that's hanging on the wall. So we're thinking, okay, what is the length of that thing, and then how high is it if it's up on the wall? All right, if it was a three-dimensional thing, then the width would be down here, but we don't have that piece of it because it's just something we're hanging on the wall. So we've just got length and height. And sometimes the test writers will just do that to confuse you. All right, so we've got 0.68 meters times 1.37 meters. We're going to set that up. All right, 8 times 7 is 56, carry the 5. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 5 is 29, carry the 2. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 2 is 10. Lay down my placeholder. 6 times 7, 42, carry the 4. 6 times 3, 18, plus 4 is 22, carry the 2. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. Do my addition. Man, I did not do a good job lining those numbers up. Got 4 numbers to the right of the decimal up top, so my answer needs to have 4 numbers to the right of the decimal. It's kind of a weird looking number. All right, so this is the area for one bulletin board, but I need 5 of them. So I'm going to multiply this by 5, and I think I'll have enough room. All right, 6 times 5, 30. 5 plus 3 is 8. 15, carry 1. 45 plus 1 is 46. 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal places, and so I don't need this last 0, so my final answer is going to be 4. Ooh, pin stuck on me. 4.658 square meters of butcher paper.